everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I'm here to talk about all the books that I read in March. I still can't believe it's April already, mainly because it doesn't feel like April. It's still very gray, very cold. We had snow on Thursday morning, we had an earthquake yesterday. I don't know what's going on. Everything feels very weird right now. But books have really been keeping me grounded, and much as I thought I had a terrible reading month in March, it was actually really good. I read a lot more than I thought I did, and I liked a lot more of the books than I thought I did. The first book I read was my, for this year, typical D.E. Stevenson read, and in March I read The Four Graces. This is set in the same town as Miss Bunkle Married and the Two Mrs. Abbotts, but it follows characters that we have never met before, namely the Grace family and the four daughters of the Grace family and their various romantic entanglements in the middle of the war as their aunt also comes to live with them and causes havoc. Their aunt is very much a Lady Catherine de Bourgh type figure. I thought it was really sweet, really fun, and just typical cozy D.E. Stevenson. I also read two plays this month. The first was Ma Rainey's Black Bottom by August Wilson, which is a play I've been meaning to read for years and was actually my first August Wilson play. I still have yet to watch the film, which is pictured here, but I have heard nothing but fabulous things about it, and I think that will lend an extra depth to it, especially as this play features music so heavily. That's really difficult to get a sense of when you're just reading it. This follows a particular jazz band led by Ma Rainey, and they're meeting at a recording studio in Chicago in the 1920s to record some of their songs. And it's about the tensions between Ma Rainey and the other band members and the white studio producers. It's about the tension between the lead trumpet player and another member of the band and how they both see themselves as Black men. It tackles heavily internalized racism and how that affects these characters' ambitions and senses of their own intelligence and worth and style. It was really incredible. I can see why Denzel Washington thinks that all of human life can be found in Shakespeare and August Wilson. The other play I didn't strictly read, but I did see it, and that was The Motive and the Cue by Jack Thorne. I got together with Marissa at Blatantly Bookish in the nicest movie theater I have been to yet. They had those reclining seats with your own tray. I could get used to that. But the play was absolutely fantastic as well. It's a play about a real life play, and it takes us inside the rehearsal room, seeing what it was like to work on a production of Hamlet that starred Richard Burton and was directed by Sir John Gielgud. And it ran for quite a long time in New York, apparently. But you look at the fear that both Sir John Gielgud and Richard Burton have around themselves, their own identities, the play, and how Richard Burton's new marriage to Elizabeth Taylor factors in, and how she tries to smooth things over between these two men. It was a stunning performance, and it made me fall in love with seeing Shakespeare and made me want to see Hamlet all over again. And both Mark Gatiss and Johnny Flynn were fantastic in their roles. Mark Gatiss, I could actually believe, was Sir John Gielgud, and I honestly think I will be disappointed when I go back and watch Cleopatra again that Richard Burton is not, in fact, Johnny Flynn. He just captured his voice so well and managed to capture Richard Burton's interpretation of Hamlet in his own way. I can't even fathom how an actor does that, but it was really incredible to watch. I also read Briefly a Delicious Life by Nell Stevens, which is a book I have been looking forward to reading for years. And Marissa very kindly gave me for my birthday or Christmas, I forget which. But it was stunning. It was one of my first forays back into literary fiction, I feel, but it was gripping the entire way through. If you're someone who feels intimidated by literary fiction, this could be a really good place to start because it's not overly flowery, overly experimental. It's very easy to follow and yet just gorgeous. If you missed my other videos or anyone else's, this has been a booktube darling for a while now. This is the story of when Chopin and Georges Sand stayed in a former monastery in Majorca. However, they are being watched by the ghost of a young girl who died there many centuries earlier and has watched all of these different people come and go. And as the story goes on, you not only follow what happens to Chopin and Georges Sand and Georges Sand's children, but also you find out more and more about Blanca herself and her life up to her death, how she died, as well as watching her fall in love with Georges Sand. This was beautiful, heartbreaking, but just a delightful experience, and I'm so glad that I finally read it. I also finally finished listening to the last Chronicle of Barset, which was wonderful and yet heartbreaking. I am so sad that I won't get to spend more time with these characters, but at the same time, I am so glad that I made it through this book. It is a monster of a book, but honestly, I think it's the most fun of all of Trollope's Barsetshire series. This takes all the characters from the Warden in Barchester Towers, from Dr. Thorn, from Framley Parsonage, and from the small house at Allington, and mixes them all together. So honestly, you get the fun of 20th and 21st century fan fiction in a Victorian novel, and it's just done beautifully. I love what happened with these characters. I feel like a lot of their fates were fairly unconventional for a Victorian novel, which I really, really loved. Some of them were absolutely surprising. It is the last book, so there are some deaths that happen. Some are expected, some are not expected. It was fabulous. I love it, and I can't decide if I should read some of Trollope's standalone novels next and then dive into the Pallisers, or should I go straight into the Pallisers next? Let me know in the comments down below if you have an opinion, if you are more experienced with Trollope. I also read a couple of ebooks through my library, the first of which was Emily of New Moon by L.M. Montgomery. I technically read this back when I was 12 years old, but I honestly had no memory of the plot. And I remember thinking that I liked it, but it was also a little bit creepy, and I didn't know what to make of that. So I finally decided to give it a reread now as an adult, having finished the Anne series, start on the Emily series. And honestly, I think my 12-year-old summary was fairly accurate. It had that L.M. Montgomery charm of following this imaginative young girl through seasons of her life, literally and figuratively. But there are also many, many really dark and creepy moments, which does make one a bit uneasy, certainly more so than the Anne series. If you're unfamiliar, Emily of New Moon follows Emily Starr, who is orphaned at a young age and is sent to live with various aunts and uncles on New Moon Farm. And tensions arise, adventures arise, mishaps arise, very much like Anne of Green Gables, except slightly darker. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Emily, especially as she grows older. I'm intrigued to see where these next two books are going to go. Then almost everyone at work who is my age has read the Court of Thorns and Roses series. So I finally had my holds come in on the ebooks and decided, let's read them. They are a fae romance series. Our heroine, Feyre, is about 19 years old, living with her father, who is injured and disabled, and her two sisters. And her father has mismanaged their money. They are starving. So she has become an accomplished huntress. However, she shoots a wolf in addition to a deer. It turns out that wolf was in fact a fae. So to settle this blood debt, she is taken back to his court as essentially a hostage and a prisoner. It soon becomes apparent that there are many troubles in the Fae Kingdom that could threaten the human life as well. Romantic tensions arise, and I really don't want to say too much more than that. Honestly, you fly through these so quickly, I'm not sure that I actually absorbed the intricacies of the various political and magical tensions that are going on. These are quite steamy. Take that into consideration if that is something that you do not enjoy in your books. I don't mind it in the slightest. And I am having fun discussing them with my work colleagues, which is honestly the best part. They are fantastic book candy. So over Easter weekend, I made it through both A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury. In fact, I read the entirety of book 2 in one day, all 745 pages. So they are very quick book candy, but delightfully fun if you're looking for some good book candy. So there you have all of the books that I read in March. Let me know down below if you have thoughts about any of them or if you have recommendations for me for the future. Since I am participating in a variety of readathons in April, check out my April TBR to find out more. And I still have holds on the rest of the Sarah J. Maas series, probably coming in very soon. I may not get to your recommendations for a little bit, but leave them there for me anyway, and I will get to them when I can. Until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone.